Another week of The Bachelor means another preview to break down, and this week I think I've uncovered one of the craziest mysteries from last Monday's episode. A question that's been on everyone's mind. Why is there a bottle of maple syrup on this table? You see, I did some intense Googling and found out that McKenna here is from Canada. And we all know that Canadians exist primarily on a diet of maple syrup and hockey pucks. So McKenna holding this maple syrup was probably something she used in a strange Canadian mating call with Peter that didn't make it to the final edit of the show. And the whipped cream she's holding was, backup maybe. Mystery solved, I say! But there's a preview to get to, so let's move on. And if you want to watch it in full or follow along with me, I'll post a link to the full preview in the description below. Oh, and please, no posting outright spoilers in the comments section. Sleuthing, as per usual, is welcome. So let's check this thing out. According to Chris Harrison, the first part of this preview is going to be from next week's episode.
I'm not a champagne stealer.
I just would never do that to someone. Why would I steal champagne?
Well, it looks like Champagne Gate isn't going away anytime soon. I expressed in my recap video that although I get why Kelsey is upset, I think that at the time, she felt like she was falling behind and was at the back of the pack, and that led to her being extra upset. But I also don't believe Hannah Ann stole the champagne on purpose, or knew ahead of time that the champagne was Kelsey's and then decided to steal it anyway. Most likely it was an accident that the producers nudged her towards, or just let happen because, hey, it's good TV. I'll also say that I think Kelsey has overreacted a lot. She calls out McKenna for disrespecting her by taking time with Peter, which I don't agree with. If that's true, she must think everyone on the show is disrespecting her. Had Kelsey said, hey, is it okay if I have the first chat with Peter, and everyone in the room said, yeah, sure thing, and then McKenna just stole him away? Absolutely disrespectful. But that wasn't the case. And then Kelsey says Hannah Ann purposely and maliciously stole the champagne, to either get attention or to get at Kelsey. But as I said before, I think this comes from Kelsey feeling upset that she hadn't had time with Peter that much, and that she thinks she's at the bottom of the pack, and will get eliminated soon. When we get upset and angry, we all often make grand statements and overreactions. And this was one of those days where everything was going wrong for Kelsey. But we know from last week's season preview and later on in this preview that Kelsey makes it further in the show and gets one-on-one time with Peter. So things are going to get better with her. If she's still making grand statements and overreactions when she's in a much better spot, it will be telling. But for now, I'm not going to judge Kelsey for some of her overreactions during last week's episode. We've all had days like that. Doesn't mean we're bad people. But okay, we've strayed from the previews, let's get back into this.
This drama is just like taking over the house.
Oh, I've also got an amendment to make in a previous preview. I thought this might be Hannah Ann, but with it zoomed out, we can see it's Alea.
She puts on the pretty little princess facade and she's manipulating Peter. She'll get a rude awakening.
This is a fake out. One of the more common ones that are pulled into previews like this. A voice clip of one woman calling out another, cut into a shot of a different woman. But Sydney here could be talking about anyone. What I do see here is Victoria P getting that sweet one-on-one time, which, if Chris Harrison is to be believed, happens next week. Now, two people that were noticeably absent from the last episode were her and Kelly. But I think that was more because the episode revolved so much around Kelsey and Hannah Ann's drama, and not because they were given a bad edit. This preview will show that the two aren't going anywhere anytime soon.
Wake up, bitches! The queen is back!
And Queen Demi is back for a rude awakening, likely just to host a group date. But boy, we're really seeing a lot of past contestants show up to lead group dates. Can't wait for the week after when Blake takes the ladies out for a group date to Stagecoach.
It's beginning to become very clear what their true colors are.
And the group date Demi is leading is going to be themed around pillow fighting. Looks like next week Demi will wake the ladies up and someone will go around smacking them with pillows before they get sent off to do the pillow fighting themselves.
Somebody's not being genuine with me.
Like, I'm honestly scared.
It's coming to that point in the season where the drama will get called out and Peter's going to have to deal with it. Someone's not being genuine with Peter and he's talking to a brunette. The first thing that comes to mind is he's talking to Hannah Ann here about the whole champagne stuff with Kelsey. If it is true that this section of the preview is only from footage from next week, as Chris Harrison mentioned, this conversation being about them two is the only possible outcome I can think of at the moment. Unless this is Alea, which I'll get into in a bit. Oh, and we also get some kissing time with Cheyenne, likely from a group date, as Victoria will be getting the one-on-one. Oh, and then she's back to being upset once more.
Everything about me is being called into question.
And there's the Alea confirmation, and she sure is upset about something. During Chris Harrison's introduction of the women live stream, he says something happens to Alea that we've never seen before in Bachelor history. What that is, well, your guess is as good as mine, but things that have happened before include contestants still in a relationship, an ex showing up, someone having a romance with a producer, someone jumping over a fence. So it's none of those things at least. Okay, now we're moving on to the section of the preview that Chris Harrison says is later on this season.
To new beginnings!
Alright, pause here. We're getting more and more info about the locations where the gang is headed on the season. Obviously, Costa Rica is one they'll be headed to fairly soon. Currently, there are 19 women still on the show. In this picture, 12. If last night there were 3 eliminations, it's probably safe to bet that the gang will be traveling to Costa Rica after 2 more rose ceremonies. So not this next episode, and not the one after that. Unless they continue to format the shows with rose ceremonies happening in the middle of the episode, that is. We can also know that Lexi, Natasha, Hannah Ann, and Kelsey make it this far based off of just their backs. There are others I highly suspect are here, but these ones are the locks. The next location is Ohio. If you pause the preview here, you can see a part of the stadium with writing right here. It's not a far stretch to imagine the name here of the stadium, or whatever's written here, is University Hospital. So all it takes is a quick Google of that to see this image. Same logo and everything. Then a little more digging to find this image from the University Hospital's website, which is located in Cleveland, Ohio. From there, we can see that this is the First Energy Stadium, home of the Cleveland Browns. Now in this shot, we see quite a few women, including Kiara. Now if we cross-reference this with the previous shot of the 12 women before, unless she dyes her hair a different color, I don't spot her here. So this tells me 2 things. The gang heads to Cleveland before Costa Rica, so expect this Ohio outing not next week, but in the episode or 2 after. It also tells me that Kiara most likely goes home that week in Cleveland.
This is so surreal to have Peter finally get to know me on a deeper level. Oh my god!
This feels like the same date as this shot here. I've guessed this is Kelsey. And we get Sydney with a one-on-one as well. Likely Costa Rica, but it could also be South America as well, which we sleuthed out in our first preview breakdown for the season, and is also mentioned later in this preview. This is also another amendment I have to make, as I previously was guessing at who this was in the preview and got it wrong. Now we know it's definitely Sydney.
We have this undeniable connection. Physically, there's a spark.
Here is Natasha in Peru that was sleuthed out in that first preview breakdown because of the fountain. And this is why I've pushed Natasha as a high pick. We're going to Costa Rica and Peru, and since we now know the likely destinations for the next 3 or so episodes, we can safely speculate that Peru must happen after Costa Rica. Perhaps it's a final 6 location. Either way, it looks good for Natasha. Also, take a look at this shot. Did someone draw on this bikini bottom on Hannah Ann? Look at it. Does that seem fake to you? I'm guessing definitely what she was wearing in the actual shot was deemed too skimpy for this preview, and someone got out their Microsoft Paint to fix it.
I feel like I've known you my whole life.
It's crazy.
Alright, pause here. Madison getting some heavy love words from Peter. She's still getting great edits. This definitely feels late in the game with the language they're using. And here is a one-on-one date with Hannah Ann, and the buildings here look very similar to the ones in the shot with Natasha, so I'd wager this is also in Peru, giving us more evidence that Hannah Ann makes it far.
I could definitely see myself falling in love in Santiago, Chile.
And there's the confirmation that they make it to South America. Looks like along with Lima, Peru, Peter and the women will also be in Santiago, Chile. Here we get more evidence of a woman in what appears to be South America as well. We get a brief glimpse of her face, which could be either Victoria F. or Sydney.
What I feel for you is unconditional and it's so real.
This is Victoria P. Looks like Costa Rica, then it cuts to this shot, which could be Victoria as well, but could also be any blonde.
Every single time I'm with you, it gets better and better.
Now here we get Peter saying, every single time I'm with you, it gets better and better. And then cuts to Kelly and some fireworks. But this is Madison. You can tell by what Peter's wearing here, and then by cross-referencing that with this shot from earlier in the preview.
I am falling in love with Peter, and I can't get enough of him.
More of Kelly paired with someone saying they're in love with Peter, not necessarily Kelly, however. Then more one-on-ones, including one for Lexi with a nice red car, which is apparently her thing now.
I am in love with you.
Crazy in love. That's the type of true love that I'm after. And
Well, Kelsey definitely recovers and stays in the show, long enough to say she's in love with Peter, which could happen anytime, but most likely means she's not going anywhere anytime soon.
I just want that love that is everlasting.
Today I realized I was in love with Peter.
Here's Hannah Ann on another one-on-one, and another mystery woman declaring her love for Peter before things start to get all about sex.
If he sleeps with anybody else, it's going to be hard for me to continue to move forward.
Well, this feels very sensual. The first thing I go to here are those shots they always do the morning after a fantasy suite date.
Sex is very important for a relationship. I don't know why there's a taboo, because it's part of the relationship.
I don't disagree with Peter here. If that's your decision and everyone involved is cool with it, who am I to judge? But when there are 3 or 4 or more women involved, there are bound to be hurt feelings and tender emotions, even if everyone involved knows what they signed up for. Now, does this mean we're bound to see a repeat of the windmill experience? Not necessarily. He could be speaking generally here. But do I believe that Peter will explore a sexual connection during Fantasy Suite Week? Yes. Yes, I do.
He Sydney last night. They literally were in the hot spring, they had sex.
See? Told ya. And alright everyone, you know what time it is. Windmill watch is over, we're now looking for hot springs. But to be fair, there's a lot of information here from a sound clip that could have any context. Still, I'll be keeping my eyes open for hot springs. Oh, and just because Peter here with Sydney kind of looks like a hot spring, doesn't mean whatever happens in the hot spring is from this date.
Shut the up. You shut the up.
When you made that decision, it was literally like a slap in my face.
This shot of Sydney and Tammy having it out is interesting because last time we saw this, they cut in McKenna instead of Tammy. So we can't say for sure the fight is about these two women, but the way they're both swearing makes me think at least these two are involved.
Why am I even here? I'm so mad. I'm pissed.
Wouldn't be a preview without a montage of crying women, and Victoria F is added to the list.
How do you just walk away and just give up? I still feel it and I want to fight, but
We've heard this before in the last preview. Someone walking away from the show. My top candidates are Alea, Sydney, and Victoria F. This shot of someone walking away looks like Alea to me, and perhaps her leaving involves that thing that Chris Harrison said has never happened before on the show. We also got this shot from the week before during this walkaway segment that could be Sydney or Victoria F as well. Why could it be Sydney or Victoria apart from their looks? Well, this shot of Sydney saying it was a slap in the face could possibly revolve around an incident where she decides to leave. Or this shot of Victoria F freaking out that we saw last week and is soon to come in this preview could also be her freaking out over something and then leaving. Chris Harrison also said in the Introducing the Women live stream that there's a lot of drama involving Victoria F. I mean, it could be anyone leaving, but these women are my current top suspects.
so much right now that's just destroying my heart.
I can't. I'm so done.
And there's the shot of Victoria being so done. And I still feel like this sad shot here is of Madison, but there's no proof to go off of other than the general body type and hair.
Don't let her go. Don't let her go. Bring her home.
Peter's mom again, mega emotional. I imagine we'll hear a lot of this in the previews to come. So this feels very endgame to me. Final 2 area. It could be about what happens at the final rose ceremony and then her saying go get her. But we do know the Weber family is a very emotional one, so it might not actually be as dramatic as it sounds.
I don't even know how to do this. Like, my heart's broken right now.
Now the setting here feels like the same general place as the final rose ceremony, which many commenters pointed out seems to be in Australia. Though this could simply be general final 3 or final 2 drama that often happens at the end of the show.
It's not over. She means way too much to me to be able to let her go.
I want to point out that there is a lot of sound splicing and editing going on here. doesn't mean what he's saying is a fake out. I just generally get very guarded when I listen to a clip that has a lot of sound edits slapped onto a shot of someone not saying anything at all. Because really, you could make Peter say anything here if you had the right words.
Before you do what you're about to do, there is something you should know.
What?
And for this last bit, we get the same footage we've seen before of the final rose ceremony from the last preview.
I feel like I'm gonna pass out right now.
And then that's it. That's the preview for this week. Boy oh boy does it feel like Christmas in January with all the extra preview footage we've been given. So where do things stand now? Based off of the footage we've seen today, I've got 6 or 7 women still at the top of the heap. Madison, Kelly, Victoria P, and Hannah Ann are still amongst them. Natasha as well, but we're adding in Kelsey and Sydney, who've gotten a lot of screen time in this preview, paired with some of the new information. Now, if this shot is indeed Victoria F, we'll have to add her name in the mix as well. But it could be, and feels like, Sydney too. As for who is on the chopping block, Jasmine. I've seen almost no footage of her in any of the previews, indicating she makes it past next episode. Kiara is someone who also hasn't had much screen time, but we at least know she makes it to Ohio. We've seen McKenna in Costa Rica, along with Lexi and Tammy, and we know Savannah and Sheann also make it to Ohio. The names we can't say for sure are anywhere include Sarah, Deandra, and Alexa. But Jasmine, I feel, has had less screen time than any of them. So pick your 3 of Jasmine, Sarah, Deandra, and Alexa. And that's it for this preview breakdown for week 3, and, well, a lot of the season to come too. That was a big one, and I feel like we learned a lot through this preview, especially about things that are going to go down during the middle of the season. So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe. See you all next week for more Bachelor fun, and until then, Bachelor Fantake, out.
Wake up, bitches! The queen is back!